Thanks, good. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about, hi, I'm Tai. Thank you to the organizers for including this paper. Super happy to be here. I'm going to be talking about platform search design and market power. So as you probably know, when you're on Amazon and you're shopping, you're potentially seeing products sold by Amazon and products sold by small businesses or third-party sellers. This creates a particular type of tension that policymakers are worried about. In particular, they're worried about Amazon's gatekeeper market power. So what is this gatekeeper market power in the context of this paper? Amazon is deciding what products consumers see when they search. This has two important effects. It's going to affect consumers' own search for products and what products they have to choose from eventually. But it's also really important for these small businesses because it's determining what types and how many customers they have access to. And so what products are seen and how they are arranged is what generates platform, which together is platform search design, is what generates gatekeeper market power. So this paper is going to try to understand how Amazon's current platform search design influences market power. The research questions I'm going to answer is going to fall onto two broad groups. The first is going to be motivated by something I see in the data that I'm going to screen. And that's Amazon's products do tend to be better positioned than the products that are sold by these small businesses, these third-party sellers. So concretely, I'm thinking about at the top of the search results versus at the bottom of the search results. This raises some natural questions. How much market power does Amazon actually gain from this advantage? And then, of course, for the consumers, are they missing out on valuable products just because they're being sold by these small businesses? Are they out of reach at the bottom of the search results? I'm going to find that there is market power. And so this raises a second set of questions about policymakers' antitrust concerns. And here, I'm going to be thinking about what policies we could use to address the market power imbalance and how this is going to affect all of the stakeholders. So consumers, these small businesses, and Amazon. Okay, so let me spell out the exercise that this paper is going to do. I'm going to collect some data, scrape product arrangement and product characteristics data from Amazon. I'm going to be focusing on home and kitchen categories of goods. So think a waffle maker might be a market, a set of waffle makers might be a market. I'm going to build a model that has two main components. The first is that consumers are going to search optimally to build their consideration set before making a purchase. And then firms are going to price in response to that consumer search behavior. I'm going to take the model to the data. And so estimation is going to end up looking like a BOP with endogenous consideration set formation. And in particular, I'm going to show we can get a really rich search model with just aggregate data variation. What are the primitives that we want to recover? On the consumer side, it's going to be heterogeneous search costs and price sensitivity. And then on the supply side, we want to recover the standard BOP, unobserved product quality, and also marginal costs. And then the reason why we want this model is we want to understand those two questions that I showed you. So first, we're going to isolate the market power that is generated by Amazon's current platform search design by trying to undo it. So giving both Amazon and third-party sellers an equal chance at seeing consumers. And then we're going to simulate some antitrust policies and see how those affect all of those groups of individuals. Just to preview some of the results, I'm going to find that there is significant market power from Amazon's current platform search design. Profits shift from Amazon to the third-party sellers when I remove the advantage. And however, consumers are going to be worse off. And so this suggests that the status quo product arrangement is actually valuable to consumers. So Amazon's incentives and consumers' preferences are actually somewhat aligned here. There is still market power though, right? So we might want to try to address this. And here, I'm going to suggest that we address the market power imbalance by splitting the platform into two sides. We're going to tease apart the products and let consumers choose a side. what's going to happen here is small businesses are going to benefit from better access to these consumers, and consumers are going to gain from sorting into the correct side, or the side that they prefer. So let me just jump into a little bit of the literature. I'm going to be building on a lot of very rich, important papers on consumer search theory. I'm going to be contributing demand estimation, a way of estimating demand with limited consideration, but given the particular search model that I build. And it also contributes to a whole bunch of papers, pretty recent, that think about how platforms and firms influence consumer search. Okay, so outline, I'll talk a little bit more about the background and data, the model, estimation results, and then look at those counterfactuals. Sure.
Should I kick about firms who don't usually investing in advertising?
Yeah, so I would not be looking at advertising reoptimization in this paper. So that's going to be health fix. It's a very important part of how small businesses can kind of influence their position in the rankings, but I'm going to be abstracting from that here. That's something I'm definitely looking at for future work. Okay, so I want to give you a little bit more of a sense of how the paper thinks about this particular market. There's three groups we're interested in. Amazon runs the platform, but here I'm really focusing on their role as a seller. Their role in this market is really to provide a lot of the mass market goods. So obviously Amazon, you're probably familiar with Amazon Basics, but what they can also go and do is go to Hamilton Beach, the wholesaler, and purchase products for sale on their platform, which they regularly do. They're not the only ones on the platform. There's all these small businesses and third-party sellers. Their role is really to just provide the niche products on the platform. So they fill out the price quality space by going in at very low quality, low price, or perhaps even very high quality, high price. And then for the consumers part, they're going to value variety, they're going to dislike searching, and they're going to dislike price, obviously. And they might be heterogeneous to the extent to which they dislike those things. The economics of this particular model is going to come about from how these groups of consumers react to platform search design. And on Amazon, there's two really important platform search design that we're going to model. So the first is search results, which hopefully we're all pretty familiar with. It's the order in which consumers are going to see products. The second is something that's called the buy box. Increasingly, people are being aware of this particular mechanism, but the average consumer generally isn't. But because there can be multiple sellers selling the exact same product, the exact same SKU, Amazon groups them together in a buy box. And for the product categories I'm looking at, 98% of the time, it's ordered by price. So there's a lot of entry in these particular markets on the seller side. And so everything other than price is competed away. So they all offer Amazon shipping, so prime shipping, and they're all relatively high quality sellers. And so they're only differentiated on price. So the lowest price seller is going to be in the buy box. Why do we care about these two particular search design features? The search results is where differentiated products competition happens. So when consumers are choosing between Amazon Basics and potentially a Hamilton Beach waffle maker, for example. And then the buy box is really important, even though consumers generally may not know about it. It's going to create very strong homogeneous products competition. And in fact, this is going to be really important for around 10% of products. Let me expand on these two platform search features. So we're going to be thinking about consumers that use the search results to discover products. So on the right, it's something you might see, a consumer might see at the beginning of their search process. They know they want a waffle maker. They enter waffle maker on the platform, and they're already immediately provided with a bunch of information. Images of the products, price, word salad of description of what the product is, shipping, etc., star rating, a ton of stuff. So I'm going to claim here that the position of the products affect the seller's competitive environment. This makes sense. Exactly how would this work? Well, some consumers are going to see, they might have very high search costs, and they may choose to see just a few of the products at the top of the search results and find it optimal to stop searching and choose from what they see up there. But they're not the only consumers on the platform. You've got a whole bunch of individuals who may have low search costs, and they find it optimal to take in more of the search results. They may scroll down at the search results to what we don't see here before making a decision. And so what that means, if I'm a seller on this page, is that if I have a higher position, I get more consumers and fewer competitors for those consumers. So thinking about a seller at the bottom of the search results, I'm only getting access to the low search cost consumers. And so this can get even more complicated if these consumers are differentiated in their tastes. And here I'm going to be focusing on price sensitivity. So for example, if we have different price sensitivities for individuals who search a little versus searching a lot. At this point, I should mention some info. So I checked with Amazon, people who work at Amazon. There's no personalization in these search results. Personalization is largely restricted to, I purchased this product before. And with this type of good, it's unlikely that consumers are purchasing waffle makers on the regular. I'm going to be pretty agnostic about the objective function that generates the search results, because I'm going to observe, my script is going to observe realizations of these search results, which are stochastic. And so it's sufficient that I know what search results a consumer might see if they're searching for these terms. Okay, so I also need to talk a little bit about the buy box because it is important for pricing. As I mentioned, it groups all the sellers selling the same product. So this is still the search results page. Obviously, I can go inside to the actual details page. If I were to buy at this particular point, you're buying from the lowest price seller, but you can see if there's other sellers selling that exact same product. If you do so, this is the type of information you might see. And all that's important here is that the buy box separates sellers into the lowest price seller and everyone else. And basically everyone else does not get anyone purchasing from them. And this is really important because it affects the pricing behavior of these sellers. If I'm in the buy box right now, pricing at $39.99, and I increase my price by $1, I'm going to lose the buy box and lose all my market share. And so we want that kind of very acute price elasticity reflected in our demand model. So
is it on this price that is only price that is used to rank?
So 98% of the time, it is ranked by price in the markets that I'm studying. So this is coming from.
They must use stock information.
Stock information. So stockouts can lead to changes in the sense of you disappear from the list when you stock out.
So that
I don't.
It's also the first that is not going to be there. It's going to be the lowest price among those sellers that have.
Correct. Yeah. Well, so like what consumers won't even be able to see the seller if they don't have any stock.
But they could see it in search.
They could see
In the search.
only if there's a seller that has stock. And they will see the price for the seller that has the stock, and it will be the lowest price amongst the sellers that have stock.
So if that was only the case, there's an incentive for a new supplier just to offer a trivial variation product and be separated from the next page. A little red dot, and then you're outside of that. How does Amazon do that?
So I don't model or kind of discuss that here, but I have seen it in the data. Amazon, I think manually will go through, at least in very popular product categories, to reduce that. So people do things like bundle. They might do, the waffle maker plus a packet of sugar or something like that, or maple syrup or something. They do try to do this to differentiate, and Amazon actively tries to kind of enforce this grouping, right? Yeah, but I haven't seen it. It's not, it doesn't happen a lot in this data, but it's an interesting model. Okay, so there's very acute pricing pressure. We want to take this into account when we go through the model, and the model will take this into consideration. So the important point is there's very strong pricing pressure from these non-buy box sellers, and it's going to be relevant for around 10% of the products. Okay, so even though there's this buy box and it is important, most of the action, particularly when it comes to search, happens during the search results, when consumers are deciding whether to scroll down this list of search results and get more information about what products are available. My scrapers are gonna do this repeatedly and see realizations of these search results. And I want to show you a particular metric, which is the average position a particular product gets. So obviously we can kind of follow the products across many weeks, see what its position is in the search results, average that. And I want to show you that distribution for Amazon products and the products sold by these third-party sellers. That's that here. The main takeaway here is that Amazon's products do tend to be higher up in the search results, but this isn't necessarily self-preferencing. This is just observational, right? In particular, the algorithms may have learned to show products that consumers like, and Amazon may simply be more likely to sell those products. And so instead of getting at self-preferencing directly, I'm here looking to just understand the market power associated with this difference that we see here. And to isolate that market power, I'm gonna remove this difference in the product positions that we see by randomizing product positions. To do this, we do need a structural model for how consumers will search and change their search behavior if we mess around with the product arrangement on the platform. Because obviously, if we made the products at the top of the page very undesirable, consumers are going to have to expend more effort to search, or they might just go off platform altogether. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the data. I've got these home and kitchen markets, so a set of waffle makers is market. The scrapers are going to imitate the typical consumer using SEO data, so data on what search terms consumers typically use when they're purchasing products. And then it's going to record everything at a very high frequency. I'm going to aggregate that up mainly to the product week level. That's our unit of observation. It's going to be also restricted to the top 20 products within each market for these 15 weeks. Just to point out some of the key variables that we are interested in, obviously we need the information on the product arrangement, so like the position and the search results, but also information about the second lowest price seller. That's important. We have the typical product characteristics like price, and I observe everything else as well, including star rating, shipping, etc. But because those don't change across weeks, that's going to be absorbed by product fix index. So like these are all 4.5-star products. This is a very saturated, high quality market. Obviously, we're doing a demand model, so we do need sales. What I'm going to do here is that my scrapers can observe sales directly for 1/3 of products. What they're doing is trying to purchase a product, trying to purchase 999 of them, and then it's going to tell me the remaining stock level, and then I'm going to map that to sales ranking for the remaining 2/3.
In terms of search results, you remove advertisers. Or you let them.
So I see this advertisers there as well.
So we just control what they do.
Yeah, so that they just have good positions.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Only scrape data and you get sales data?
So the scrapers are going to try and purchase a product and then try to buy 999 of them. And it's going to tell you how many products are left in 1/3 of the cases. And so I have inventory level at a very high frequency, hourly by hourly for some of the top ranked products. And that's an observation of sales.
It doesn't control for restock, right?
So I observe restocking. So there needs to be an assumption there that restocking occurs at a more frequently than sales, which I observed. And then the remaining observations of downwards, the remaining observations of falling falling inventory levels gives us those sales.
So you're only looking at products that less than 900 that are in stock. Is there like bias there?
Yeah, potentially. I haven't looked at specifically that ceiling effect, but even for the top ranked products, I do see periods where they fall below the 900. So like that's a pretty large buffer for Amazon to keep in stock. So that even for the couple products, I do see it deployed.
I thought that was actually the max order size on the platform. But my question was, so I think some sellers can set a maximum order size to prevent
Yes.
people from inferring their stock level.
Yeah, so sophisticated sellers might directly set a limit to obfuscate. That's something on observables, I can't see a difference between the products where that occurs and when it doesn't. But yes, there's potentially some endogeneity there.
I understand it correctly, you essentially have ground for 1/3, and then you impute the others based on what grounds is the third, you see how that maps into the sales rank, and then you impute all the other stock from sales rank.
We believe that is like code that you get in Amazon. Sometimes it has very large errors, for instance, and you might not found the errors. So this number that very numbers might be
So yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard that before. Because I observe it at a very high frequency, I can see very steady declines in stock levels and rapid increases when stocking restocking occurs. So I presume that means at least if I'm seeing just the one warehouse, then if it's consistently wrong in the same way across all my measurements, that wouldn't affect this. But yeah, I might need to get more information on that. Okay, so let me move quickly. So this is the data. Let's just sense check this stuff by doing some reduced form analysis. I've been talking about product positions affecting sales. Let's see if that bears out in a simple log-log regression. Sales on the left-hand side, price and position on the right-hand side with product fixed effects. So we're following a particular product, a particular SKU across the weeks, the 15 weeks. When its prices change and when its position in the search results change, is there a correlated change in sales? The answer is yes, and in the correct direction that we would expect. And importantly, significant enough that we can pick up within product variation. And this is important for estimating the actual structural model. Obviously, this has potential remaining endogeneity. I'm going to address IVs in the structural model. And this doesn't give us any way to think about how consumers will change their search behavior if we change the product position. And so let's go to the model. Let me give you the overview of the timing before getting into the specifics. Firms are going to move first, and the firm side is actually really simple. They're differentiated goods matched with brand. So they have marginal costs, and all the complexity really just comes from the demand model, which they're going to pick up when they do their price reoptimization. Consumers are going to be heterogeneous, but they've decided to purchase a product online, say a waffle maker. If they choose to search on the platform, they're going to sequentially traverse the platform to build their consideration set. Doing so is going to reveal information that we just saw on the search results, so price, the image of the product, etc. And they're going to do so, they're going to search having rational expectations of what products are available at each position in the search results. And I'm going to go into this in more detail next. At some point, they'll find it optimal to stop searching. It is at this point that they're going to realize an epsilon taste shock. It's going to be logit. And at that point, it's just a standard discrete choice problem, conditional on the consideration set that has been formed in the previous stage. It's going to be static one shot. We're going to use the SPNAE for the solution method. So because purchase is standard, let's focus on the search part. We're going to be thinking about consumers' search process as traversing over a tree. And so how is this going to work? We've got nodes and edges up here. The top node is the root node. At the beginning of a consumer search process, as we were talking about, they enter in Waffle Maker and immediately they're going to be confronted with multiple products and information about the price and a lot of information about the other characteristics of the product. And so we're going to take that as them landing on that node and adding all of those products to their consideration set. If they want to see more products, and here search is scrolling down in the search results, they have to pay a traversal cost that's kind of interpreted as the cost of taking in that information. They can do so, but they only have rational expectations of what products might be in the next screen's worth of search results. They don't know exactly what will be there. If they choose to search, then that information is going to be revealed, and those products are going to be added to their consideration set. So here in this framework, we've got the search results represented by the larger nodes. We can also take into account those buy box mechanisms through this framework. So with the buy box, we're going to think of them as these ancillary nodes that consumers can access. And again, they're going to have expectations of what products are going to be there, and they're going to know correctly that those products are typically higher priced. And so it's actually generally going to be off path, but they can choose to search into those ancillary nodes. That off path behavior is actually really important for enforcing the really strong price sensitivity that those sellers on the search results page face. Okay, so the way products are structured is pretty non-standard compared to a search model. That's typical, but the way the sequential search occurs is still basically boils down to thinking about the utility you have in hand and the consideration set you have in hand, and thinking about how your utility changes when you engage in search. And so it's just comparing the marginal utility and costs of searching. Another important note here is by structuring it in this particular way, the data, our observations of the product arrangement, it actually tells us what consideration sets are possible and excludes all the impossible consideration sets. And so this is informative for the actual model, right? We know that if a consumer drew this particular tree, they can't only have products 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9 by themselves. They must have seen products 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so at this point, we actually need to solve for each consumer's optimal search path on that particular tree that they draw. Doing so is going to give us market share equations that we can take to the data. Let me show you a simplified version of the solution when we're thinking about just two goods. This two good example is going to set aside branching paths, uncertain product arrangement, and also taste heterogeneity, but it gives us a lot of the taste of what the economics in this model are doing. All right, two good, legit. I don't think I have to explain much about this. This is obviously full consideration. We have our legit market shares. I want to show you what happens to product 2's market share when we have search and we solve for the search and get the market share equations. To move to a world where we have search, we need two ingredients. The first is a particular product arrangement. So here we're going to think about a situation where product 1 is always in the first node and product 2 is always in the second node. We also need a distribution of search costs for consumers. So people who have low search costs, people who have high search costs. If we solve for the market, their search path, the market share equation for firm 2 is going to change and be multiplied by those individuals who actually see product 2. So how does this work? If you think about it, if we start with someone with 0 search costs, it's optimal for them to fully search. As we increase search costs, at some point we'll reach the indifferent individual who is going to decide, actually, it's not worth it for me to continue searching to node 2. And so that's what defines the set of consumers that are actually available to firm 2. And importantly, this particular indifferent individual is determined by the product characteristics and the prices. So firm 2 knows that when it changes its price, it's changing who the indifferent consumer is, in addition to conditional on being seen, they're competing with product 1 for those consumers. These low search cost consumers are obviously not just seeing product 2, they also see product 1, and so they're in product 1's market share equation as well. Product 1 also gets all the individuals that have the low search costs. And importantly, they're also competing only with the outside option for those individuals. And so another important reason why there's a relationship between platform search design and market power is that platform search design is actually determining market structure here. Two goods for consideration as a duopoly, but with search, it's a mixture of a monopoly and a duopoly. And so this is how platform search design generates market power in this framework. Question?
Can the search results be personalized? For example, when this customer is always seen one represents.
Yeah, so on Amazon, they don't personalize these search results, and I've done that with Amazon. In the extreme case of personalization, what you get is platform can probably, and platform together with the sellers can extract most of the surface from consumers, and it becomes more of a price discrimination type store. So in the same way that uniform prices leads to certain outcomes, the fact that there is no personalization in search results is required for these results to hold.
So in the database,
no, it's not personalized. There's no personalization. So personalization is going to happen on very highly frequently purchased goods. If you always purchase this, Coke, there's personalization in that sense, but not for waffle makers and toasters. Okay, I need to fly through this. So obviously that was just 2 nodes, 2 products. What we see in reality is branching paths and also a whole distribution of product arrangements. So in particular, when we're thinking about rational expectations, they're taking rational expectations over all of these potential arrangements of products. And of course, if you have different tastes, you're going to have different optimal search paths. Okay, so I'm going to fly through estimation. It has a BLP base. And so what's nice here is we have heterogeneity on price sensitivity and search costs, and we're recovering unobserved product quality. Except we need to solve for the optimal search path. That's just a convex hull calculation. I do want to talk quickly about endogeneity. So same endogeneity concerns with price is going to be reflected in product position. Because I have week-to-week level data, I'm going to make an AR1 assumption on unobserved quality to make headway. So this is going to motivate lags as instruments. So the identifying assumption here is when I'm looking at a product and following it across the weeks, if it's unobservably high quality one week, it's more likely that it's unobservably high quality next week. And so there's a relationship there, which motivates the AR1 and allows us to use lag product positions and lag prices as instruments. So this assumption really kind of boils down to, what do you think the product unobserved quality should be doing week to week? Let me show you some raw results. This is the estimated product consumer heterogeneity. Roughly makes sense. It kind of predicts consumers are searching around 10 products deep into the search results. There's a negative correlation. This makes sense if it's driven by household income. People who have high household income have a high cost of time and are less price sensitive. Let's skip this. And now we want to use the model to kind of go back to those two questions we started with: market power and antitrust policy. So just to spell out what we're doing here, we're going to change the product arrangement, give consumers new rational expectations for those product arrangements. So we're really thinking medium to long term, not the gradual process of learning about the new product arrangement. Firms are going to re-optimize prices, and then consumers are going to re-optimize their search behavior. Now, to think about market power, a natural one to think about would be something like full consideration. This is because fundamentally market power here we're worried about is that products at the top of the search results are not competing with products at the bottom of the search results as much, right? So if we go to full consideration, where consumers just get all the products are competing with each other equally. However, what we're going to see when we do the counterfactual is that prices are going to increase, consumer welfare is going to go up, and profits are going to go up. And this is because we've kind of magically increased allocative efficiency in this market. Consumers are very heterogeneous and the products are very differentiated. And so when we move to full consideration, they have much better products and they're willing to pay for it. Prices are going to increase. So if anything, this is counter to what we would expect. And so full consideration is giving us the correct kind of competitive environment, but it's disregarding the fact that there are search costs in obtaining various products. And so instead, I'm going to think about randomizing the product positions to get at the same competitive environment. So instead of going from a situation stylistically here, where Amazon's products are more likely to be shown in an advantageous position, they're going to be equally likely between the third-party seller products and also the Amazon products.
Just a quick one. Is it conditional on observables likely, or they're equally likely?
So in this one, I'm going to show you, it's going to be unconditional. I have done some conditional. Conditional is difficult because there aren't exactly the same quality products in Amazon and third-party sellers, but the results hold to around 2/3 of the magnitudes of what we see here. I want to show you this counterfactual kind of in steps. On the right here, I've got net utility for the consumers. So their purchased good utility less the cost of searching, prices and profits split out between high search cost individuals, low search cost individuals, Amazon, and these small businesses. So we're going to step through this slowly. This is just the status quo levels for these metrics. If we implement the neutral arrangement where we randomize the product positions, but we keep prices fixed, what's going to happen is small business profits are going to go up, Amazon profits are going to go down. That makes sense because Amazon's getting worse positions, third-party sellers are getting better positions, and consumer utility is actually going to go up. But if you concluded at this point that this particular arrangement is good, that would lead to incorrect conclusion. So what's happening here is if we take a product that's at the bottom of the search results sold by these third-party sellers, brought it up, fixed its price, consumers would really like that. So there are products there at their current prices that consumers want. But once we allow sellers to re-optimize their prices, those third-party sellers are going to internalize the fact that they've got a better position. They see more, they get access to more consumers. They're going to take advantage of their market power. And after prices re-optimize, consumer welfare is going to go back down. Okay. And so this is why Amazon's kind of incentives and consumers' preferences appear to be aligned with the status under the status quo arrangement. In light of there being market power, I'm going to suggest a way of addressing this market power by splitting the platform. So what we're gonna do is take all the Amazon products, put it on one side of the platform, take all the small business products, put it on the other side of the platform. One of the nice things about modeling search as this traversal over trees is we can play around with weird product arrangements like this, and the search model is going to tell us which side consumers actually want to go, because it's just all part of the search process. Just to sum up what's going to happen here. So allowing consumers to choose the side, we're going to find that high search cost consumers choose the Amazon side. Amazon has a set of mass market core products that people who are time constrained really like. Whereas the low search cost consumers, they're going to go to the small business side, which actually has a lot of the same products Amazon's side has, just at higher prices. They're the people in the, not in the buy box. But it also has all these niche products that fill out the price quality space. And those low search cost consumers can actually benefit from it. And so consumers are going to gain by having better ability to sort between the sides of the platform. This is also another way to kind of think about the market power that Amazon has. So like there's this quote by Bezos that says, you know, we didn't have to invite small businesses on our platform, but in doing so, it's going to help us, and it also helps the small businesses. And I think that's a very true quote. What we're doing here when we're teasing apart is seeing what's the value of each side of the platform. And so what I find is around 44% of the individuals go to the small business side, and the remaining go to the Amazon side. And so that gives you a value of the worth of those two sides. Okay, so I'm going to conclude. Retail platforms can use search design to generate market power. I estimate a model where consumers are searching optimally over an arrangement of products, and firms are pricing in response to this search behavior in order to model this market power. I'm going to find that yes, Amazon enjoys significant market power from the current product arrangement, but consumers would be harmed if we try to tease that or reverse that. Instead, we should allow consumers to choose between a small business side and an Amazon side, effectively giving them the opportunity to support small businesses, and this would help address the market power imbalance. All right, thanks.
All right. So thank you very much to everybody for being here, and to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to read this very interesting paper. I had seen this before, but I hadn't really spent that much time as I was able to stand on the paper, and it's been really interesting. And thanks to Tai for answering my questions, which I sent last night circa 1:30 a.m. So that was appreciated. All right, so I should say, this is, I think, is a very ambitious project. It tackles obviously an important question. I don't need to convince you that Amazon is an important player in today's economy. So it's an important question with very little data, right? Amazon is known for not really wanting to share much information about what they do, and certainly not share a lot of data. So we're working with very little, and we're trying to tackle an important issue. I would also say, in terms of sort of more academically, I think this is a nice example of, you know, how the search literature, which is was pioneered really in marketing, can contribute to policy debates. So the way I think about sort of this literature is, at the beginning we were asking sort of the basic question of, are consumers inattentive, right? Because we were coming from a world where most models did not assume that, or did not allow for that. We were assuming that consumers had all the information available. So the first batch of papers sort of in the search literature has worked on establishing this, the fact that, in fact, in a lot of cases, even very high stakes markets and choices, consumers are in fact inattentive. And now with these tools that we have developed, or even slightly modified tools like in Tai's case, we're ready to sort of then really answer and address questions about what the implications of consumer attention. What are the implications for things like competition and consumer welfare? Another feature that is very interesting about this paper, which is not always the case in this literature, is that it endogenizes the firm's response. So here we are in a world where not only the rankings of products, like the position of products on the webpage changes, but also the prices are going to be re-optimized by firms. So we are really going to be able, in the sense, to look at an equilibrium in the long run and how things would change when the pricing adjusts. So this being said, I have a couple of comments on sort of the model, because as I said, the data is by necessity limited. And so there is a question, I think, of how much heavy lifting is the model doing versus the data itself. One thing, and this might be more expositional, it's not one thing that we clarified a little bit with Tai talking earlier today, is how does the search model sort of differ from existing search models, right? So if reading the paper, sort of one quote is, my consumers begin at an earlier stage with neither a component of utility in hand nor a fixed set of products. So this is kind of the verbal description of the model. Then in the example that Tai gives in the paper, and I think maybe also in the slides, this is actually sort of the kind of expectations that consumers are forming when choosing which products to consider. So it's really an expectation over the idiosyncratic term of utility, the epsilon term. And if I just look at this example, I would assume that, or I would infer that consumers are aware of the average utilities, the deltas, right? So I would maybe work a little bit on clarifying exactly the timing of the assumptions. And then this might help kind of differentiate and sort of clarify the distinction with respect to other search models, such as the simultaneous search model. I think another paper that is relevant here is a kind of a recent paper, a couple of papers by Rafael Greminger, who really thinks about kind of extending the sequential search a la Weitzman, allowing not just for the decision of which products I click on and which I don't, but also how far do I scroll down in the search results, which is sort of, I think, a little bit what Tai is thinking about when approaching this model. So how, what are the advantages and disadvantages relative to this model? The first thing that comes to mind here is there's an assumption of individual level data, or the model really is tailored to individual level data. And again, here we only have aggregate level data, so weak product level data, so a much more coarse kind of type of information. So on this note, I would say it would be interesting to sort of elaborate a little bit more on the assumptions and trying to understand essentially how much they're likely to affect the results, right? So one assumption that is embedded in the model is that you really, as a consumer, learn about these epsilon terms. So the sort of my idiosyncratic preference for a product, I learn all of the idiosyncratic terms of the preference of the utility only after I'm done searching, right? So what is the sort of how much bearing can this have on results? I think trying to get a handle of this would be interesting. And also, what are the consequences for the sequences of searches that the model allows, right? So you don't observe, obviously, the sequence of searches. You don't observe actually any data on searches, but from data sets where we actually do observe that, or at least we observe the products that were clicked on and not, we know that consumers do tend to sometimes, for example, skip products, right? The Expedia data from Kaggle, for example, exhibits this pattern. And so what is the sort of, is this pattern allowed by the model or not? That wasn't, I couldn't really, tell from the description. So given this sort of, with the goal of trying to assess the robustness of the results to the search models, I think, there's a couple of options. I'm thinking what would be one way to sort of try to, address this. So one way would be to test different search models. And we have papers that do this, people in the audience too. But typically here, these kind of approaches do require click, and we don't have that information. Okay, we're working with quite limited data by necessity. I should, again, highlight. Another approach, which I have done some work on actually, and I'm only citing my paper because I'm going to cite a limitation of it, so I think it's not, I don't feel too bad about it, is that it's, one could think of developing a method to estimate preferences that is robust to the different search models. So you're not committing to one search model, you're trying to be a little bit agnostic. But this approach is allows you to do full information counterfactual, which you do in the paper. It doesn't really allow you to say what would happen if the rankings change, because that really then is going to require an understanding of how consumers are searching. So you do need to commit one search protocol in doing this. And so I think these options are not really viable in this case. My suggestions here would be sort of to think about some implications of the model and see if, with the data that is available, you can test those implications. And then I think maybe the main one would be to show some model results of model fit, right? So again, the data is obviously fairly coarse, but we should be able to do some out of sample analysis and see sort of how the model captures market shares out of sample and maybe compare it with with competing and see how whether the out of sample data goes. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to maybe go through this very quickly. I had, I talked a little bit about the instrumental variable approach. So we have this unobserved quality, which is denoted by C. And here the endogeneity problem is that, as the unobserved quality that is not captured in the data increases, we might expect higher prices and also higher or better positions, right? So there's a correlation that needs to be handled. And so the solution is to assume an AR1 process, so kind of a persistent process for C, and then use like price and position as AVs. So I thought, in some categories, such as seasonal categories, if I have like a space heater or an AC unit, I can see why we would be worried about variation Cs. In other categories, especially in such mature categories like an iron or food processor, my sort of intuition was that assuming an invariant C might not be such a big problem in this case. So just the fixed effects in which you do have in the model might actually capture most of the source of endogeneity. And this made me think a little bit about the idea of sometimes we worry almost too much about endogeneity relative to what we should. And your colleague Peter Rossi has certainly thought about this in his work. Maybe this is not the case, but I think in general a little bit more discussion on what we think is the source of endogeneity, where it's coming from. And whether the instruments are sort of appropriate, I think would be helpful. And then relatedly, can we think about within product variation? So once we condition on a product, once we have product specs, is the remaining variation in prices and position? Can we think of it as good as right? I think your prior is, or your take is no, and we need instruments. But one can also say Amazon. We know Amazon experiments a lot, so at least some of that variation might be a good kind of having a little bit of a story for what we think is driving the variation. I think would be good. Last thing I will say, I'll skip a couple of these, but is I thought about the counterfactuals. One other option would be to say, let's not create two platforms. This was your last counterfactual, right? Where essentially the idea is to have a platform for Amazon products, let's say where all Amazon Basics products are sold, and a platform where third-party seller products are sold. What about having just one platform where, just like now all the products are sold together, but you're sort of splitting the decision making within Amazon. And so the pricing of Amazon Basic products is separated from the rank, right? And I think this could have potentially the benefit of, essentially avoiding duplication. You could reduce the switching costs. Consumers, if they do want to switch from one platform to the other, they now don't need to do it because it's all in one platform. Potentially actually lower prices too, because you're keeping all the products together. So there's going to be a little bit more price competition, but you're essentially forcing Amazon to divest its seller kind of, so splitting the platform and the seller component and potentially generating welfare gains. I think this is outside of this model, so I do think of this as a suggestion for a different project probably, because I think this would require thinking about what is the Amazon doing when they're choosing the rankings, which is currently not in the model. All right, I'm out of time and I'm going to wrap up here, but thanks again.